Hello, everyone. Welcome to the live. This is Sherelle with Project Purpose Podcast, and I really should be joined alongside my sister and business partner, Dawn Smith, who is a psychologist and also a business owner herself. And today we are here. This is Friday Connect. We're planning on doing this every Friday around this time, which is 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Unfortunately, today Dawn is having internet issues. She's actually in Jamaica, and well, I guess the internet can go out anywhere, not just Jamaica, but she's having internet issues. So hopefully she can join us maybe later on as we move forward. But I wanted to just, honor the time that I said I would be on. So, welcome. If you are seeing this live, it is for a reason. Stop by and say hello. Let me try to invite Dawn in again. Um, just a moment, guys. We apologize. She's talking to me. All right, everybody, welcome in. Welcome to the live. I hope that everyone is having a wonderful weekend, the start of the weekend, right? It's Friday. We're here on the West Coast, so it's still early for us, right? It's just 4 p.m., but I know on the East Coast it's getting ready to be night now. So we thank you for tuning in. Again, if you're seeing this live, come on in the room and let's have some fun. Today, we want to talk about money mindset, which is what we've been talking about the last few weeks, just how we handle money, the relationship that we have with money, and how we, view money. If each person have a different view depending on your childhood experiences with money, your early childhood relationship with money, and oftentimes that carry us into adulthood until we become more educated, knowledgeable, experienced, and then we begin to allow our money to start have a healthy relationship with us, right? So we've been talking about it. Then the last live we talked about how to set up the budget, and we had even shared how to use Google Sheets. Dawn had went over that, and it's very simple, guys, and it's also free. It's with a Gmail account. If you don't have one, the Gmail account is also free. So get yourself one. And then when you log into your account, typically to the right of your screen, you'll see a bunch of resources that Google have available for you. One of them is called Google Sheets, and you can use it to actually create your budget. If you're a small business owner like ourselves, you can also create your profit and loss, and you can also do your operational expenses right there in Google Sheet. Right? We were trying to take away the stress of not starting that budget, and we all know that the budget is really the opportunity where you dictate where your money goes as opposed to wondering where it went at the end of the month, right? We all know that we get paid and we're always wondering where's our money. So today we want to talk a little bit about just how to start paying off those debt, right? So you set up your budget, you now know where your money's going, you understand your needs separate from your wants. And in the budget, we had also talked about how to create it effectively. And one method we had shared was that you could do the 50-30-20 rule, where you allocate 50% of your income towards your needs, which are your, everyday living, survival resources such as your rent, mortgage, transportation, food, things like that, right? Then you also allocate 30% towards your wants. And your wants are things that you can really do without should you lose your job, so to speak, right? So your wants are your lifestyle, like, eating out or going to the movies or taking a vacation. Only 30% of your income should go towards that. And then we talked about the remaining 20%. So we talked about 50 and 30. So that's 80. The remaining 20, we split it in two. And we said 10% you should pay yourself, right? Should always pay yourself. And we even encourage you to automate that. So set it up an automatic deposit straight from your payroll department, right? From your account, your paycheck going straight into a savings account. Later on, you can always start creating your emergency funds with those very savings, right? And then the other 10% is what would go towards your debt. And so that is what we want to talk about today. So, welcome. Thank you for tuning in. And let's go ahead and dive in. That is what we want to talk about today. I am sending my sister a request on video to see if she'll be able to pop in with us. Um, Not sure if she's getting any internet as yet, but I'm sending her a request. All right, guys. So we're gonna move forward. Before we actually dive deeper in, there's a few things that I want to just, just generally talk about in observance of the month of September, right? As you know, there's always tons of holidays um, and different events that are being observed throughout the year. So I took a little bit of note to share with you what's going on in the month of September. Dawn had wanted to actually talk a little bit about Suicide Prevention Awareness Month, right? So the month of September is actually Suicide Prevention Awareness Month. And that is where, you looking to raise awareness and preventing of suicide. She is the psychologist. So sorry that she's not getting the opportunity to share that information with you. However, if you are someone is just been depressed, feeling very hopeless, feeling in the need that you need to talk to someone, just feeling like you're not able to cope, I want to encourage you that help is available, right? And so you want to reach out, to your local suicide prevention hotline and, just talk to someone. I also want to encourage all of us, generally that have, friends and, to check in on them, right? And checking on your strong friends is what they always say, the one that is always hyped, um, happy, bubbly. And whenever you say how you're doing, they're just like, I'm okay, I'm doing great. You still want to look into going a little bit deeper to say, how are you really doing? how is everything going, right? So use this month. We should do it all the time, right? Whenever the opportunity presents itself, but more so the month of September is that awareness month. So use the time to read up more on suicide prevention to see how you can help, and check in with your friends and loved ones. So that's one awareness this month. The other one is also blood cancer awareness month. That is where they focus on educating the public about blood cancer. We all know that the cancer in itself is just terrible, regardless of which one it is, right? It's a disease. We are feeling very hopeful for the future because more and more researches are showing us that soon there'll be a cure for cancer. But for now, you want to look into that as well to see how you can prevent it, how you can monitor it, and check up on your friends or loved ones again that may have the disease and just need a word of encouragement, right? And then the last one that I want to talk about before we move on is World Alzheimer's Month. So again, that's just bringing awareness to the disease and the impact. Oftentimes this is in our elderly, so maybe our grandparents, sometimes even our parents, depending on what age you are, right? um, this is a disease that is just again another devastating disease, because you look at them so strong and powerful, and definitely people that you look up to, and then to see them so feeble, and not knowing you, not recognizing you, not knowing where they are. It's very heartbreaking. So we are looking to bring awareness to that disease, and also just to understand the impact that it have on the whole nation. But oftentimes, in your home, oftentimes when family members do have Alzheimer's, we have to get them into a specialized institution, and again that is even taking them away from their environment. So that is something that can be heartbreaking. And so it's good that there's researchers out there trying to help us to become more aware of it, because it can even happen at a younger age. And so it's good to know that there's causes um, to eliminate that, and definitely to minimize it. So those are the different events, some of the different events that are observed in the month of September. And believe it or not, today is actually National Encouragement Day. Ironically, there's a lot of trying times right now. There's a lot of things going on, especially here in the United States where I'm at. And it's just a level of unrest, uncertainty, anger, distrust, and so on and so forth, right? One of my special quote is, the true test of a man is not who he is during time of ease, but his true character will show up during conflict and time of controversy. And that is for all of us. It is so easy for us to say, I love you, I care about you, you're my friend, you're my neighbor, when things are good, when things are great. The challenge, however, comes when you upset me. Your values differ from mine. Your views are different from mine. You make me angry. I have a different views. Can we still love? Can we still respect? Can we still care? Are you still my neighbor? So today, the day of encouragement, I want to encourage all of us to really understand what it is that we believe. And then, if we truly believe that, then we have to believe it all the way. We cannot compromise, and we cannot just choose the part that is convenient for us, right? But if we're going to love, we have to love all the way. We are all different, and we will continue to be different. But at the end of the day, we're all citizens of the earth. So that's my encouragement for you. We're going to dive into talking a little bit about debt, because that's why I came on here. It won't be a long live, guys. I'm just going to share some information with you. And if you have any questions, I do have my phone right here with me. So you can go ahead and put them in the chat. And I will be monitoring it as I'm talking so that we can have a conversation together and learn and grow together. All right, so Dawn is on here watching. Thank you, Dawn, for watching. Thank you for your support. Excuse me. Thank you, Sheena Lewis, for joining. Thank you for watching. I appreciate it. Thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you, guys. All right, thank you guys for tuning in. What questions do you guys have for me as it relates to debt repayment and just the budgeting that we had talked about last Friday? All right, so let's talk a little bit about debt repayment. You know, a lot of people are actually very stressed about the whole economy, but also oftentimes the stress is coming from how we actually handle money, right? So as we learn and become more aware of the different resources that are available to us, we understand that no longer do we just have to wing it, so to speak, right? There's actually tools and resources available for us to actually become better managers of our money. And oftentimes, before that happens, that is why we get into debt, right? And there's so many misconceptions around debt. For example, a big lie that we've been told most of our lives is that debt is normal. I want to share with you today that debt is normal and profitable only to the banks, right? And it becomes such a norm in our society that there are people that literally live their whole life, die with debt, right? Still leave debt to their families and their loved ones. So we just want to see if there are ways that we can actually minimize that debt. Okay, maybe we're gonna have with us, right? For example, we understand that there are different types of debt, and most often all debt is just, bad debt on a whole, because the ones that are good is because eventually you're able to pay them off, pay them back, and get rid of them and be out of debt. So those are the only times that debt actually becomes good. So we talked about understanding good debt versus bad debt. And the good debt, right, are typically debt that increase in value, right? And the debt that um, just appreciate, so to speak. So when you think of a good debt, think of like a mortgage loan, right? How is that a good debt? Because most often when the deal is right, when you run the numbers and you did do your due diligence, the mortgage um, will continue to be paid down while your home is increasing in equity, right? So that is often considered a good debt. Another good debt is a business loan, because it increases in value. The whole idea again, if the numbers are right, when you borrow the loan, you're going to benefit yourself, but you're also going to oftentimes benefit your community, right? Because you are a business owner, so oftentimes you're hiring other people and you're contributing to the community. But most importantly, a business owner is in business to make a profit. So eventually, your business will increase in revenue, and you'll be able to pay off that debt. Another debt that is considered good, oftentimes, is a student loan. And we've talked about this already. Again, it needs to be strategic because we all know that student loans can also be bad if we did not look into it deeply and make sure that we're choosing the right path for the career, where there's a demand in the field for the education, the higher education that we're seeking, right? Then you just get out of college, you're in a pile of debt and you're not able to get a job, right? That's not really a good debt. But if you did your research and you got that student loan, oftentimes you are bettering yourself. So you become more marketable. You become, a higher value in the marketplace, and you're able to work, right? Even start a business and get really compensated for it, and then you pay off that debt. So oftentimes those are the only debt that I'm aware of that are considered good debt. What are bad debt? Those are like car loans, right? As soon as you drive off the lot with the car, it does appreciate. Now, I know that in our budget, and honestly, to survive nowadays, we definitely need transportation. But if we all admit it, oftentimes when we go on that car lot, we buy with our emotions and not with our intellect, so to speak, right? We just love the car and we want that car. And any regular car could do, but we wanted the flashy car. So oftentimes we get into serious debt with auto loan, and it takes a long time, a very long time to pay off. And again, like I said, you're losing value the minute you drive off with it. So if you can buy your auto cash, that's always the way to go. Another bad debt is credit cards, right? There's no explanation needed for credit card. It loses the value because there's only so much that you can spend, and it's got crazy interest rate, and it will take you years and years and years to pay off. And oftentimes what we're using the credit cards for, it's not necessarily our needs, right? It's oftentimes just our wants, our lifestyle. So you want to be very careful with credit card debt as well, and you want to stay away from those as much as you can. And another debt that is considered bad debt is those payday loans that are very popular nowadays, right? It's where you go to these convenient stores and you take out a loan, so to speak, with the intent to pay it back from your payroll check, right? When you get paid. However, they are also charging you fees and things like that. And that can become a nightmare if you are not managing it. So you definitely want to stay away from those type of debt, right? Excuse me. Nevertheless, we all have debts. So let's talk a little bit about how to actually pay them down from the 1% that we had talked about before. And there's different ways that you can pay off the debt, right? And I want to go through them real quickly. So you can choose your own strategy, whatever works for you. I'll start with the one that is called hybrid emotional method, right? And that is where you pay off the one that's causing the most stress psychologically. So let's just say it's a credit card, and you were just excited about getting the credit card. They gave you a $2,000 limit on the credit card. You would really, tell yourself that you're only gonna get gas, right? You were just going to use it a little bit, maybe just to build credit, right? So you were only using less than maybe 10%, definitely less than 10%, right? You were only using like $50. And as soon as you use your $50, you would pay it back. And you were feeling good. You were feeling great. You were proud of yourself because you were in control of that card. Now, for whatever reason, let's just say someone invited you on a trip and you knew that you didn't have the money at the time, right, in your account to finance that trip, but you still wanted to go. So you're like, oh, I'm just going to use this credit card because I just know that I'll be able to pay it off. You have every intention of paying it back, right? And paying it off. And you're like, yeah, when I get back from the trip, I'm going to pay this off and it's going to be great. But you charge there, you charge your hotel, you charge your airfare, and when you get to your destination you realize you have to Uber, so you charge Uber. You realize you needed to eat out every night, so you charge it on the card. At your hotel, as you walk outside, there was this beautiful boutique that got all these beautiful dresses in there, and you decided just to try on one or two just for the sake of it. And darn, they all fit beautifully. And you're like, you know what? I just know I'll be able to pay this card. I'm just going to charge it. You get back home and you look at your card statement and you realize you had literally maxed out the card. You had used up $2,000 on the card, right? On top of that, your manager told you that things are tight at the job and they're going to cut back on hours. So now your hours are cut back. And guys, I'm sharing a story hypothetically, but these things do happen, right? We don't know the future. And oftentimes we make decisions because we project what things would be. Now, that is something that you were in control of. And within a matter of 30 days or so, you are out of control with that card. You start something that used to be just maybe $15 per month for the payment is now $280 a month minimum. And when you look at the statement, because they do show you what's called a truth in lending, you realize that it's going to take you forever to pay off this card if you just pay it by the minimum. And so now you're stressed, right? Now you are, upset with yourself, and it doesn't make you feel good. So it's now working on your psychic. Those are usually the cards that you want to pay off the first. And you're like, why? And because it bothers you so much, you would then now start looking into creative ways to pay it off. So you might find a second job. You might look to find gigs online that you can do to earn additional income to just get rid of that debt as quickly as possible. So that's the hybrid emotional method. And a lot of people do this because for whatever reason, whatever your story is that is attached to a particular debt, you're like, oh, I just can't wait to get rid of them. They're calling me every day. I can't wait to just have a zero balance. And so you can take care of that debt first. The second method that some people do use is called the debt avalanche method. And oftentimes, this is when you come into some extra funds, or you get a raise on the job, right? Something that's going to be consistent. I certainly wouldn't encourage you, if you come into some extra funds, to use it to actually pay debt. You can DM me to ask me why, or you can put it in the chat. Why, if you come into a lump sum of money, why would you not use it to pay off debt? So that would be like a no-no. It would be like my last resort to what to do with that money. However, let's just say it's something that's going to be consistent, such as a raise, or if you know that you're very solid at the job and every year they give you a bonus, something like that, you can also use this. Or some people use their tax return. If you're someone that actually get a decent amount of refund back, this is also a time when you could say, I'm going to use the debt avalanche method. And what that is that you're paying off the highest interest first. So you would look at all your debt, right? Especially credit cards debt. Oftentimes, that is what we're talking about, right? Um, it could be a car loan as well. I hope that you don't have a high interest rate with a car loan. Usually, the credit cards are the worst interest rate. So, oftentimes, those are the ones we look to eliminate as quickly as possible. And so you would use the avalanche method. And avalanche, it's just a big avalanche, and you just will dump as much money as you can to get rid of that one, and then you move on to the next one that has the next highest interest, right? And that really works for you long term because you're saving money long term, right? Because you are cutting out all that interest. But this is not really doable for a lot of people because unless, as I mentioned, you come into some funds where you're able to dump it into a credit card, where else are you going to get the money, right? That is why we end up in debt in the first place. We didn't have enough money. The third way, the third strategy, and the most popular is the debt snowball method. And what this is that you are paying the smallest balance first. And that really just gives you some quick wins. So in essence, it's almost like the same psychological drive that you have with the hybrid method, right? But this one is a more positive emotion. So you're feeling confident now. You're feeling like you've got this, right? Because you're like, whoa, I just paid off this debt. Where's the next one? Let's go, right? The snow, the snow method, like I said, is where you pay the smallest balance. So let's get into it, guys. So this is where you would still pay all your minimum due on all debt, right? We're not telling you to stop paying some debt and only pay some, because remember, when it comes to your credit, the biggest factor on your credit is payment history. And so you always still want to pay your bills on time. So you want to continue to pay the minimum that's due on each card, all your loans. And I would recommend, if you are in the up in the position, to set them up on auto pay, just so you won't forget and incur additional fees, late fees, additional interest charges. You want to set up all the minimum due on auto pay. But then you want to get all your statements for all your debt, and you want to look at the one that's got the lowest balance, and the money that you have, right, the excess funds, you want to use that to pay off the first one, right? Pay off the one with the smallest balance, and you get rid of that. You move on to the next balance, the next small balance, right? A really good app to use that is also free is Credit Karma. And you can definitely set this up. It's very easy to use, and it allows you to monitor how you're looking, your overall health, your overall credit health. Now, the scores on Credit Karma, just so you know, they're not always accurate, right? They're usually higher than what they truly are. And they could be as high as, they're usually between 50 to 100 points higher, believe it or not. So you want to be careful of that. But what it does, it gives you an overall picture of what your credit health looks like. And it will also show you all your cards, all your loans, really. And so that's an easy snapshot for you to see which account has the lowest balance, and you can start paying those down instead of doing all the paperwork, going through the statements. So you can definitely use Credit Karma as a guide. Okay. And so that's the smallest, that's the snowball method. Again, it's where you pay the smallest balance first while you're still paying your other minimum payments. And when you're done with one debt, pay off one debt, you move on to the next debt, and you keep attacking it like that, guys. So, most Americans, believe it or not, have some form of debt, right? So you're not broken. I want to encourage you that if you're feeling overwhelmed with debt, I find that the biggest breakthrough really is to face the debts, right? There are times when, you just don't want to pick up the call, or you don't want to look at your statements, and you sometimes literally just stop paying the bills. Let me tell you, just because you stop paying the bills, they didn't disappear. They really didn't disappear. And it's only really making it worse. So the biggest thing to do is to just face it head on, look at it, even if you're not able to start paying them down as yet. Be able to see it, be able to know it, and be able to make a plan, create a strategy on how you'll be able to minimize them and eventually eliminate them. Now, I also want to share with you that debt is very stressful and it will add to additional sicknesses in your life, right? So if you're concerned about sicknesses or not losing weight, or maybe even having relationship issues, money problems can carry over into other areas of our lives. So it's very important at this day and age that we face the elephant in the room, so to speak, and begin to understand it, begin to look into it. And it's not just this live, right, or the Project Purpose podcast. There's tons of free resources available on YouTube, online, right? Google. Now you have AI, so you can use it, and you can start managing your money, setting up that budget, and then start, creating your emergency fund, still pay yourself, regardless of how much debt you have, is what I would say. You still want to pay yourself because that creates a cushion, right? So that when a true emergency arises, and it will, you'll have that cushion available as opposed to continuing to use credit card, right? Credit card is not an emergency fund. Your credit card is not your emergency fund. And if you're doing that, you've got to start looking into ways to fix that, right? Therefore, this is where we become creative. We have to tap into the opportunity to make more money. It's simple as there's two ways to this. We have to control our expenses and we have to make more money, right? There's this thing called lifestyle creep. Have you ever heard of it? If you've heard of it, give me a yes in the chat. Hi, Shireen. Welcome, Shireen. Thank you for joining us, Shireen. Thank you for still being on here, Dawn. Thank you guys for watching. And whenever you come across this live, be sure to share it with friends and family. Like I said, we do this every Friday at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We call it Friday Connect. And it is where myself, as well as my sister, Dawn Smith, who is a psychologist, we get on here and we talk about money and the mind, right? We are now learning that a big part of the way we handle money as adults is the relationship that we had with money as a child, right? And so we need to understand our values, our views when it comes to money. We need to be able to tell ourselves what money means to us, right? What are your values, and how do you see money? Therefore, it will dictate how you manage it. There's quite a few people, guys, that are making amazing money. So I'm not just talking about someone that, just not making a lot of money. We're talking about people that are making multiple six figures, right? And they're in all industries, and they're making really good money, and they still live in paycheck to paycheck. Why is that? And then there are those people that are making, $40,000, $50,000 a year and is living a good life, really living a good life. Why is that? How are they able to manage the money? So that's where the psychologist Dawn Smith comes in. Make sure you tune in next Friday. Hopefully she'll have better internet connection. And myself, I just love to talk about money. I am no expert, by no means necessary. I'm just sharing real life stories and experiences that I've been through, and I just firmly believe, I'm passionate about it. I firmly believe that we can live a good life still making the 50, the 60,000, right? We don't need to be millionaires to live the good life. We just need to learn more discipline, and we need to have consistent income. This whole yo-yo money, I work this month, I don't work next month, I work the next month, that won't build you wealth, right? The system is broken. So you've got to find ways to make consistent income. After all, the whole world is governed by money. If you want to live a certain lifestyle, you have to deal with money. So there's no getting away from it. Isn't it time that we start managing it as opposed to letting it managing us, right? There's generations, guys, that stay in the same place. Generations. We need to break that. And we have the resources, we have the opportunities around us, we have the skill set. We just need to start developing the mindset. So if you're with me, go ahead and join. Sean is here. Hi, Sean. Hi, Sean. Join in, Sean. Welcome, guys. What questions do you guys have for me? I'm about to wrap this up. So, one of the things that I want to share is, I want to just go over is that you have to start saying to yourself, I need to find a way to manage my expenses while also increasing my income. That's just the bottom line, guys. No matter what excuses we give ourselves, no matter what we say. So let's talk a little bit about lifestyle creep. That whole term, what it means is, believe it or not, when we talk about the multi six figure income earner making money and still living paycheck to paycheck, that is called lifestyle creep, right? Oftentimes we we're making the 50,000 and we're doing okay. We're doing okay, right? But the moment we get more money, right? The moment we get a raise at the job, or the moment we come into more money, what do? We also increase our expense. Remember, we were making, let's just say 50,000, right? And our expenses were, let's just say 45,000 a year, right? You were still able to live off that 5,000 lifestyle. You weren't rich, right? You weren't able to do absolutely everything, but your bills were paid. You were able to do the barbecue, cookout. You may not be able to take, extravagant vacation, but you were able to maybe take one vacation with the family for the year. Believe it or not, there are people that are making $50,000 a year and is able to do that, right? But now let's just say your income increases to 70,000 per year. From that 5,000 that you were using as your lifestyle, you would think that we, right, and I'm saying all of us, it happens to the best of us, including me, you would think that we would stay right there at that same 45,000 expense. But what do? We increase our expense, right? We're like, oh, we got money now. So we change out the cars, right? We remodel the kitchen. Yes, ladies, I'm talking to you. We remodel the kitchen, right? We finally get the pool in the backyard, right? We change out the wardrobe. We start taking two vacations instead of one. We buy everybody a car in the family, right? And so that's what's called lifestyle creep, as opposed to investing those money, right? The new money. Remember, we were already living okay. So give and take, we could have maybe increased our expenses to 50,000, right? 5,000 more. But oftentimes, what we do is we maxed out that new income that we just received, right? And we continue like that. We get to the six figure, we start making $100,000 or more per year, and you're like, how can I not? Why am I still broke? Where is the money? Where is the money, right? It's because our expenses increase again. We're making 150 and it increases again. Now we're taking 3 vacations a year, right? We're sending little Billy to private school. And it goes on and on. And I'm joking about it, but it's real. What we are learning now is that you should still aim to keep your expenses at the same level as your income increase, right? That way you're able to now use this disposable income to start building wealth. That is where you create that emergency fund, right? That is where you now start creating an additional savings account to put those money into the money market, right? Into stocks. That is where you can now start dipping into real estate or other business venture, that business that you've always wanted to start, that you know you're passionate about, you know you're really good at. You just know that it takes some capital. You're just don't know where the money's coming from, and suddenly you get the money. But instead of starting that business, we change out our car, we change our zip code, we change our vehicle model, right? We start wearing more designer clothes and we start showing our money on ourselves as opposed to building wealth. And that is something that we need to start becoming more aware of, because we make the money. We make the money. We just need to learn how to manage the money. So thank you, Shireen. Shireen said that's good information. All right, guys. So if there's no questions, again, that's just the information that I wanted to quickly jump on here and share with you today. That you can definitely start managing your money. There's no more. There's no time to be embarrassed about it. There's no time to be, timid about it. It's time to gain the knowledge, use the resources that are around us, right? And seek out the information that we need so that we can create the life that we desire, right? So we talked about creating the budget, understanding where your money is going. And oftentimes it is not in your needs. It is not because of the mortgage. It's not because of the car payment. It's not because of the utility bills. It's oftentimes in our wants. If you should really look, that's why it's very important to look at your statements and set that budget, because it's oftentimes in the little things, the everyday little things that we get when we swipe our credit card, the eating out every day, the ordering the Uber Eats, right? The going to the movies every weekend, the constant weekend getaway, the long vacations, the clothes that we're buying, the subscriptions that we're a part of, the flexing that we're doing with other people, right? Like I said, changing out the cars, the hobbies that we're into. That's where our money's going. If we find ways to control our expenses, we can raise our standards of living by just having that confidence that we're in control of our money, and that true wealth is from within, right? Material things don't bring wealth. Study the rich, study the wealthy, study the wealthy. Sometimes they're right next door to us. Have you ever read The Millionaire Next Door? Sometimes they're ordinary people. They don't flex. Wealthy people don't flex. Wealthy people don't flex. It's unfortunately most of us that want to pretend that we have it more than we actually do. And that's what's keeping us broke. And it's time to change that, guys. It's time to get out of it. So control your expenses, increase your income. If your income is only just covering your expenses, then it's time to become more creative, because we have the time. We're healthy, especially most of us, myself included, who you don't have kids and you don't have a whole lot of other commitment. Why are you home at 3 p.m. in the day, right? You should be hustling. You should be learning new skills, right? and we always talk about creating additional source. Right now, we know there's this crave about, side hustles. And I want to let you know, if you're listening to this and you are truly looking for additional sources of income, then you need to DM me, right? Let me know what you're interested in. We have businesses that we run, home based businesses, that if you do the work, they pay you really good, and it takes away from nothing that you're doing right now. So that's definitely one way to make extra income, right? But what are you good at? What are your skills, right? What can you start um, putting online out there so that you can make more money, so that you can increase your income? And when you do increase your income, it's not to increase your expense, it's to now start paying down those debts and start creating your emergency funds and start creating overflow of cash, right? Cash flow, so that you'll be ready when opportunity presents itself, right? So that's the information that I wanted to share with you. If you want to know what I would do, should I come into a lump sum of money as opposed to paying off debt, then DM me and we'll talk about it. Thank you so much for tuning in. Again, my name is Sherelle with Project Purpose Podcast. Don't forget to subscribe to the podcast, guys. We share things like this. We also talk about relationships. We talk about health. We talk about, gaining confidence and clarity. My sister Dawn is the psychologist, so she talked about, how to, understand yourself, become the best version of yourself, and how to have healthy relationships. You can actually find her information, and I'll put it in the chat here, at Soulful Serenity JA. Soulful Serenity JA is her website.com, right? She's also here on Facebook at Soulful Serenity, so you can look for her. But definitely tune in for more like this, and let me know if this brings you value. Please leave me a comment in the chat. If this brings you value, leave me a comment in the chat, right? And like I said, share it with someone or two that needs to learn about your money and how we can make it grow, how we can forget about being shy, timid, secretive, private, embarrassed. Everyone is going through it, guys. Trust me, everyone is going through it. No matter how good they look at social media is created and is only showing the good life, right? Let's go get the good life for real, for real. Thank you for your time. Until then, bye for now. Bye, guys. Thank you, guys. Bye so much. Thank you, guys. Bye.